Maħna għat Mario Kacċattolomi għaw ħanet kelmu dwar Master de Valette. Mario, this is risky. I've got many friends who are historians, so I suspect that some of what you might say might get me in trouble with them, because you're not going to tell us the historical facts as we find them in historical books, but the behind the scenes of this de Valette, Jean, you tell us what his name was, please.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of debate, first of all, about his name. So he was Jean de Valette, and people get a bit upset if you use one of the qualifiers or the other. So he only ever used de Valette in his life, but people call him La Valette, and you're quite right, historians get very upset about it.
Yeah, so...
call him de Valette.
De Valette, so Jean de Valette.
So,
what should we know about him?
So there's a lot of stuff we know about him, of course, in relation to the Great Siege, and of course Valletta being named after him. So I'm a tourist guide, and when I take people around Valletta, I always stop to pay our respects at his statue in the Piazza in Valletta. And I like to tell people some lesser-known stories about Jean de Valette. Now, I don't want to break your heart, but Jean de Valette did not like Malta. He asked the Order of St. John to leave Malta twice in the 1540s.
Charming.
He approached the council the overall council that ran the order, and he said, look, Malta is difficult to defend, does not have many natural resources, and I don't like it. He said he didn't think the Maltese would be very good fighters. And
did he now?
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah. And he said we should move the order to Tripoli, because the order also had fortifications based in Tripoli. Luckily, the council of the order ignored him and stayed here. By the time de Valette became Grand Master himself, it was too late. He knew the Ottomans were coming soon, within the next few years, and he thought, well, we've got to work with what we've got. And we should remember, in 1551, the Ottomans invaded Tripoli and wiped out the Knights' base there.
There you go.
So he was wrong,
of course,
to move to Tripoli.
And we all know what happened in 1565, then, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. He then becomes the hero. And I should tell you that he did revise his opinion of the Maltese. After the Great Siege, he did say, actually, those guys fought pretty well and were pretty brave. So he did change his mind.
Fair enough. Okay.
But yes, he wanted to leave Malta. It's not a lot of people know that. I should also tell you that, so Jean de Valette was of noble birth. I think it's well known that to be in the order, you had to be noble on your mother's and your father's side. But at one point in his life, Jean de Valette was a slave. He was captured. 1546, he's captured, and he spends a year rowing on an Ottoman galley.
Wow.
He was tied to an oar.
No, that.
Yep.
Tied to an oar?
Tied to an oar.
As a slave, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, otherwise he's going to get away. They all were. And he was rowing for a year. Now, I can tell you, he spent his time wisely, because he was a linguist.
Right.
He could speak 5 languages. To begin with, he could speak French, his natural language. Then he could speak Latin, Italian, Spanish, and Greek. But he could also, after his time spent rowing on the galleys, he could speak Turkish and Arabic. So while he was a slave, he learnt those 2 languages. I mean, people say he was fluent in them. I mean, I don't know. We don't know how good he was, but he certainly learnt the language.
It begs the question, did he speak Maltese?
Yeah, I mean, it's never been mentioned, so it seems unlikely. Now, he spends a year rowing on the galleys. Now, he's in his 40s at the time, so, that's, middle age.
Yeah, but in those times, it was...
It's a hard life, rowing on the galleys. But eventually, after a year, there's an exchange of prisoners, and the Ottomans let him go. Now, of course, they didn't know who he was going to become. They didn't know he was going to mastermind their defeat at the Great Siege. But, he spent his time as a slave on a galley. That's
really interesting. I mean, that's a good workout, but it's, That is very interesting. I never knew that.
Yes, people don't tend to know that he was actually a slave himself.
I see.
He kept slaves. I can tell you that he kept slaves, like a lot of the order, like a lot of Grand Masters. The Order of St. John kept slaves, traded in slaves, as the Ottomans did. So did the Knights of St. John. Not making excuses, but unfortunately, everybody...
That was the reality, yeah, unfortunately.
That was the reality of the time. Yeah. And he once got into a fight because he took a slave from North Africa, and somebody in Malta accused him of doing this illegally, improperly, because there were kind of rules around this sort of thing.
Yes, ironically.
He beat the man he was arguing with so badly that he got arrested and thrown into prison. And in fact, we think Jean de Valette was imprisoned at least twice while he was a knight moving up through the ranks. So he was known to have a very hot temper.
Quite a character he was, yeah?
Absolutely. My other favourite thing about him, because I love animals, I love pets, I've got a dog, and he loved animals as well. He had a taste for exotic exotic animals. So he had a baby lion here in Malta.
Here in Malta?
Here in Malta.
As a pet?
Yep, as a pet. So in his rooms over in Birgo, he kept a baby lion. He kept a falcon, Maltese falcons, of course, being very famous.
Fair enough.
But my particular favourite is he kept a parrot as well. So he kept these animals in his rooms. He had a taste for exotic pets. I'm assuming that somebody else did the clearing up.
Yes.
It sounds a bit messy.
Yes, and I'm wondering how many languages the parrot could speak.
Yeah, he could talk. That's a good point.
I mean, once Jean de Valette was in the room, and I imagine that the parrot was all ears.
He could probably teach the parrot sort of naughty words.
This is amazing.
All sorts of different languages.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, he had a taste for exotic animals.
That's
now,
fantastic.
There's another link with animals regarding his death. So when he finally passes away, this is what's recorded, the day he died, all his pets dropped dead.
Come on, no.
That is what's recorded.
No.
That is what's recorded. And it gets more interesting. The day he died, it's recorded his exotic pets in his rooms in Birgo die, and a school of dolphins ran aground in Masashlock, and they died as well. All on the day he died.
Okay.
That's a bit strange, don't you think?
I mean, the school of dolphins, I mean, bad news as it is, but that his 3 pets died?
Apparently so. That is what's recorded.
Okay. The plot thickens, doesn't it? I mean, thank you very much. This is very interesting. I mean, I'm ready to forgive de Valette for saying that Malta is indefensible and doesn't have any geographical features of note. He's right. It was. And that's what made his feat and that of the Maltese even more impressive.
Exactly.
But that the Maltese people are chickens, no.
No, quite the opposite. He did change his mind, to be fair.
There you go. So that's good. That's good for correctness sake. Mario, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. I'm intrigued about these pets, but thank you. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Jean de Valette. Quite a spicy character. Thanks again for being with us. Nifqu għal waqfa qasira, nikkontemplaw titfuq de Valette, nerġa' narawkom ktar tard.